Welcome tonight. Welcome. And whether you're live or tuning in later, we are the Dinosaur Omelet. My name is Christopher.
I'm Angela.
That's Angela, the wifey. And we are the Dinosaur Omelet. Like I said, we're a small hatchery in southern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And tonight we're going to be talking about...
Behavioral enrichment.
Yes, the environmental enrichment for your chickens, which is an important subject. Because these animals are, who's that? Aaron dropped in. Hey, Aaron, what's up, buddy? Hi, nice to see you. It's been a while. Hope you're good. Yeah, so the environment for your animals is going to be very important. Like any other organism, they're designed for a specific area where they thrive, where they're healthy. And so we want to simulate that and provide them with healthy environment. We're going to talk about that tonight on our live. If you guys have any questions, whether during this live or afterwards, drop them in the comments, and we're happy to answer them. A little bit about us, if you're new. Would you like to tell them the creatures we raise, wife?
Well, we like to encourage people towards self-sufficiency, learning skills that you can do on your homestead or in your tiny, tiny, tiny yard, if you have a tiny yard or a big farm.
Size is not prohibitive.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's always options. So we do jumbo wild Coturnix quail, because they are prolific egg layers and they lay the largest variety of eggs for quail. And then they're also nice and meaty little birds, so they can be used for both meat and eggs. They grow very fast. And
yeah, new people,
quick.
Down in the description is a PDF. It's free. You don't have to give me your email or anything. It's really good. You just click on it. It'll tell you about these quail and how to raise them. We wrote that here so you don't have to waste too much, because people are lazy. They don't like to spend a lot of time learning anything. And this is a simple enough task that you should know some of the key fundamentals and you'll raise them fine. So in the description of this video, there's a bunch of links that we produced, but one of them is the Q&A for quail. If you were wondering about them, they're very, people ask all the time. They're still very popular. We had people pick up more. I've been ordering them even this time of year.
You could be brand new to animals entirely, or you could be experienced with, farming or large animals. It doesn't matter. Quail are very, they're easy to care for, to raise, and be successful with.
Yeah, you will. They're easy, yeah. You're very easy to succeed with them to produce food at your house. I know that's a concern for a lot of people. So our target audience, the people we deal with, in this community, this niche kind of community, the homesteaders, you guys are more savvy, you educate yourselves, you're concerned about your health, you usually prioritize family time, and some of these fundamentals about our human experience. And producing your own food is usually a big priority for a lot of the homestead people or self-sufficiency people. So we're talking about like vegetable gardens, obviously, animal husbandry, chickens, bunny rabbits, quail, goats, whatever you're raising. So we have spent significant time learning about and teaching on jumbo Coturnix quail because after looking into these different food animals, these I think we've come to the conclusion they're probably one of the most efficient and productive creatures one can incorporate, particularly in limited space. You raise them in a hutch. I'm not trying to sell you on quail, but they're definitely interesting, so go look them up.
So then, of course, there's chickens, there's standard size laying chickens, there's meat chickens, there's tiny bantam chickens.
Ostriches.
People raise for eggs and meat.
I think
and
Aaron's
also
crafty
for
emus.
Fun. Oh, yeah.
Got emus.
And then, there's other type of homesteading animals for either small spaces, that work in small spaces, or larger spaces like meat rabbits and such. So in general, we encourage people to be self-sufficient. We encourage and just share information.
However, very important things, remember everybody out there in television land, have an appropriate and delineated goal.
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to do? It's one of the things we always talk about in these videos. People, they look at the internet and they're like, oh, I want to do that. And they jump into it without really planning, and it creates a lot of problems and actually stifles progress, as opposed to you thinking, oh, I'm going to jump into this and get it done real quick. But take your time, sit down, figure out what you're trying to actually achieve, and thusly you can start building your plan from there, your tactics and strategy to achieve your goal. Okay, makes sense? You don't want to waste time.
Or be stressed.
I'm the tortoise.
Or cause
Is
issues.
that how they say it? The tortoise wins the race? No, slow and steady wins. The
Yeah,
tortoise won the race against the bunny rabbit. Well, the bunny rabbit was
Slow and
goofing
steady,
though.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I think that is good for this introductions, and we can begin.
Yeah.
Madam, shall we? So, I'm gonna shut up. I'm just gonna do this introduction for this. So, again, new people, thanks for coming in. Hit the sub if you haven't subbed yet. If you have a request for a future educational session here on these wonderful live videos, let me know. I like doing these things. I actually do research, and I mean, we do this stuff, so I'm not just talking off of something I copy paste off the internet.
But it helps keep discussion
It
focused.
keeps me organized.
Yeah.
Hey, if you have a subject you want to hear about, let me know. If you have a question about anything we're talking about, put it in the comments. If you have a question about the quail crap we were just talking about, just let me know. All right, or send a message on the Facebook. We're always there. Anywho, okay, environmental enrichment for the chickens. So what is environmental enrichment? Okay, I mean, we're all pretty smart here. I think we can guess just intuitively what that means. So environmental enrichment is the providing stimuli that will promote natural behaviors, enhance well-being, and social interaction and other natural behaviors, foraging, roosting, etc. So an enriched environment, an enriched environment for these chickens is you're trying to simulate what they have out in nature. Okay, remember, the chicken is domesticated from the wild jungle fowl, and all domesticated chickens, friends, their cousins are out there doing regular chicken stuff, walking around, they're pecking, they have a lot of stimuli, they have to interact with a lot of different things in their environment, figure things out, hunt for food, etc. So they're constantly engaged. Okay, there's cognitive engagement for these animals, physical engagement for these animals.
And yeah, because they're not a robot. They're a living creature.
Not yet.
But this, to just kind of like relate this to life in general, humans, we require some sort of stimulating environment. Nobody likes being in like a box of a
Chicken jail.
small building with
Howdy,
no
Bill.
windows. Yeah, and social, like creatures are generally social, and you can think of like your pets, like your cat or your dog. Usually people have toys for them, or there's space, whatever. So chickens, very similar to other creatures, like Christopher said, they're domesticated and we're taking care of them. And there's a big difference with putting them in a contained area where they can't leave, that has nothing for them to do, versus an area that is contained but full of different things for them to be stimulated by, and really affects their health.
Yeah, so these organisms, it doesn't matter, chicken, fish, dog, whatever.
Yeah.
Their natural ancestral lineage is bioadapted to the environment that they live in. So we have our domesticated versions of our pets, the fish, the cat, the dog, the chicken.
Wait, real quick, you can think, I just thought of like zoos. I'm sure
Okay,
anybody
zoo
who
animals.
has been to a zoo where the animals just look like really
Depressed.
depressed and sad, and you're just like,
Horrible.
this is not their environment.
The monkey cage.
Versus you see a zoo where they do what they can, they go above and beyond to fulfill their needs, and they look stimulated and happy and healthy. Like, big difference.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're simulating artificially, trying to replicate to some degree the natural environment that the animal's ancestor came from, all right? So, I mean, it makes sense. Think of your aquarium, your fish aquarium. It's like a fake little lake or a fake little beach scene, okay? For most of that's kind of, it's for looks. It doesn't really simulate what the fish do.
But
it
if
looks
you're
like,
using like real plants and stuff,
Yeah.
then they eat them.
But I use that because it's a good parallel for what we do with our domesticated animals, trying to simulate their natural environment. I mean, think even the moo cows. They're out there grazing like their moo cow cousins. So we want to simulate similar environments with stimuli.
And it's
Okay.
not just, obviously we're going to get into the details of it, but it's not just for no reason. It does affect their output, their health, their overall,
So that's environmental enrichment and why we're doing it and what it comes from. And the reason I tell you guys about the whole parallel with their natural environment is so it seems much more intuitive. It makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, like they live in a chicken yard, but they're not meant to live in a chicken yard. They're meant to be foraging out in the wilds. And we talked about this before. It's beneficial for them to be in the chicken yard. They're going to lay more because they're not expelling energy for foraging. If you have them in a coop, and we talked about that last week, they're not susceptible to predators and not susceptible to as many diseases and interactions with other animals.
Like wild birds.
So last week we talked about all these pluses and minuses to raising them in a coop versus pasture raised. But either way, with the pasture raised chicken, they're going to have more of that natural foraging behavior, but they may not have some of the other behaviors, some of the other environmental conditions that you can simulate more effectively in their coop setting, which we're going to talk about. So that's the environmental enrichment. So what are we looking for in environmental enrichment? I'm going to stop yapping and get a drink because I'm losing my
Already.
Yeah. Physical stimulation, cognitive stimulation, and social stimulation, right? Just like in the natural environment. Dear wife, please talk about these fun things. Obviously, physical stimulation, foraging, perching, etc.
Yeah, so much of these, the topics we're going to talk about here, we're talking about chickens. So, and some people like to set up quail environments in this way as well. Aviaries, yeah. But speaking of chickens,
we should talk about aviary.
Go ahead.
To non-chicken people and non-poultry people, these might be new words. So most of you guys may know this. Aviary. What is an aviary, dear wife? A natural.
It's a bigger area has a taller ceiling, and the birds are generally on the ground versus being in like a hutch, like a rabbit hutch style thing where they're up off the ground on a wired floor type of structure with shelter. It's the whole area has some vegetation, usually bedding on the ground, or it could be grass, and it's just kind of more natural.
All right, now what were we talking about?
So we're talking about the
physical.
When you think about chickens and their behavior, what's natural to them? They scratch the ground. So in my mind, I keep thinking of the differences where you might be driving and pass somebody, who knows who has some chickens, because a lot of people have chickens, and they might be in like a really small run, and the ground is just dirt, and there's just like nothing for them to do. So you'll see the chickens all of them just standing, doing nothing.
Versus a cigarette,
like they just don't have anything to do.
Versus
like somebody you might pass and they have a bigger area, spacious, and the birds are just moving around. So what do they instinctively do? They're scratching around, they're always looking down, they're looking for bugs, they're looking for little rocks, for food to eat, and they're curious. They're investigating things. We were just talking about how birds have very good eyesight. So they're going to be investigating things. Something moves, like a bug or something, or just like some kind of movement. They'll go over and explore and see what it is. So what does that tell you? And if they're loose in a free range situation, there's a lot of breeds that if they get to a tree that has like low branches, if they're not the greatest flyers, some of them can get up high, so it doesn't matter the height of the branch. They'll go for the branches and they'll go up. And so what is that? How does that translate to having an enclosure, and what can you do to stimulate their natural behaviors?
Their natural physical stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So practical application. We want to have physical features for the chickens to engage with in their run area. So a lot of people have the run around their coop. It's not huge like a giant yard. They have limited space, but we still want the animals to engage physically. So you can put different items in there to stimulate them, to give them a change of environment. And you can change the position of where these things are sitting, like such as logs,
you can have
boxes, buckets, branches, leaning them against the fence, leaning them against the house.
You could put a tire, like a type of tire structure, and you can put sand or loose dirt in the inside of the tires. They can dust bathe in there, or
hang stuff from a string, little danglies where they pack out them, toys.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like chickens like to eat, So if they're foraging, if they're pasture range, or if they're in a pasture, or if they're free ranging, they're going to be constantly looking for food, because it's going to take them a little bit more time to get that food as when they're looking for it themselves, versus having a feeder right in front of them. So food, having healthy type of foods, like hanging a cabbage or hanging a head of lettuce, or some sort of there's different types of things.
I saw one where they put the chicken feed in like a PVC pipe kind of tube, and they gotta really try to pick at it, but it gives them something to do.
Get at it. Yeah.
So a lot of you guys are familiar with like the pick and scratch kind of feeds. Scratch, you toss it out. You're doing that to do the whole stimuli of having to go around, peck, and forage like they would naturally. They may not have access to the big yard like the free roaming chicken, but they're still going to be able to at least engage in the natural foraging behavior. This is good for chickens. We're going to talk more into what happens mentally and physically because of this stuff that's going on.
And then also, they like to scratch. So there's, a lot of people, if you have them in a stationary space, they're going to eventually, if there was grass, that grass will disappear because they just scratch.
Scratch and eat.
So if you have sand in the bottom of the area, or whatever, some sort of bedding, once in a while, it's like such a fun thing for them if you throw in some leaves, like a leaf pile, or some fresh straw, whatever. Like it's nice when your area is covered so the stuff doesn't get wet. But if it does, you just work on it. But they love scratching through that stuff. Like they get to town right away as soon as you add something like that.
I was just going to say, she brought up a good point about the whole sand. Chickens love to sand bathe. That's a physical thing they do to keep cool, to clean their feathers off, and mitigate parasites if they have any little bugs crawling on them. So they like to get into the sand. So that's another physical thing we can put in there. But that's important for the animals, for their mental well-being and their physical well-being. So mentally, they're pecking and looking around. Physically, they're walking around, engaging with the different objects, the different obstacles, especially if you guys take the time. A lot of people care about chickens like they're pets. They're not just egg layers. So if you take the time, you can rearrange their play area, and it becomes a new environment to them, right? Because they get used to the setup, but then you remove something, put something else in. It gives something for these birds.
And what are they going to do? They're going to be doing what we said. They're going to be exploring, scratching, doing stuff, versus standing around, really not moving, being super bored, and just getting fat.
Yeah. So in this video, the point of all of this is to promote optimal well-being of your birds, their optimal health. You can keep a chicken in a little box, and people do this all the time. There's giant egg factories. They keep them in little boxes all the time, and they just lay eggs. Not happy, not healthy. So we want happy and optimally living chickens. We're feeding them well. They have a nice clean coop. It's got plenty of size in there. The birds have ventilation, have a nice space. Their run is a good size. But now we're also incorporating stimuli for them, physical stuff, mental stuff, stuff for their brain, for their physical body to engage with. If it's an empty run, they're just meandering, and they're not as interactive with some of these objects. They would if you put some obstacles in there. Another thing, too, with their environment is their social interaction. Angela W., tell us about the social aspects of the chicken. Are they social animals?
They're very social.
Do tell.
They're just like constantly talking to each other. They'll build bonds. You'll see certain hens within the flock will be preening themselves. One will preen the other one. There might be nothing on her, but it's just pick
like
that imaginary.
Like
yeah, because they do that for bonding. They groom for bonding. So the silkies with the chickens.
This is like the Jane Goodall of chickens.
You'll see them just standing around and then just enjoying companionship.
Have they let you go into their tribe?
I think so. My silkies anyway. But and they'll just kind of preen. You might see a hen go up to the rooster and do that to him, or he might do that to some of his favorite hens, and they will just talk to each other, or somebody will see something like, ooh, this is exciting, I see a bug, and might make a sound to kind of tell the other ones, and then the other ones come over, oh, what is it, and Then you see the one pick up the bug and start running away because they want to eat it themselves, don't want to share it. But anyway, it's just like social interaction, and they just like we like to, talk and have companionship.
Most humans like that.
The birds are the same way. They're a flock mentality.
Now, I was going to interrupt you and say something about the whole interaction of chickens aspect. We once in a while we talk to people who want to get a pet chicken and they want to get a single pet chicken. Don't do this.
It's really sad.
That's not a good thing to do. So
yeah,
you really should have a companion chicken for the creature.
Yeah, they will talk. They talk to each other.
Because they're very social animals.
I had somebody. They had a silky, and then I think it was a different breed, and they were bonded, but they had lost the other breed to a predator, and they had the one silky, and they were really concerned. They wanted to get our friend, so they got a silky from us, and they said they immediately bonded, and they said it was really interesting because the voice of the one that they originally had, how she talked to the new silky sounded different than the way she talked to her other friend.
Really?
It was like the tone and the sound, the pitch and everything was different. So, because they have personalities.
This makes me think, if you guys ever watch those extremely depressing, sad animal videos where the animals like emote, and they seem like, I'm like, this dog cares more about the other dog than most humans care for their own family. The animals they're emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And they do notice when part of their community is gone, and if they don't have anybody around them. So that's not a fair thing to do if you're keeping a pet. I'm not chastising anybody, but you should be aware the animals thrive when they have companionship of their own species.
Now, should I go into the full picture of the social dynamic of good relationships, or
Would you like to hear?
So what I'm trying to say is,
gentlemen,
so
would you
it's
like to
very
hear?
important.
Yes, please. Angela's going to talk about, what are you talking about?
The social dynamics.
The social dynamics of your chicken
Just
flock.
real briefly. It's important to make sure you're properly combining temperaments, personalities. Sometimes there are, it's not, I'm going to say here, generally, the flock will be, should the temperaments in such a hierarchy will settle so that everybody's getting along. Sometimes there's some strong personalities who are just a little too dominant, and they might cause a lot of stress in the dynamic of the flock. So
is that a bad chicken?
That may be if it continues to cause disruption, a lot of disruption, like stress, then that may be a bird that would have to be moved to a different area altogether, maybe with its own buddies. But it's important to make sure that, because some breeds have stronger temperaments than others too. But even within a breed, you can see variance with personalities. So it's important to make sure that everybody's getting along for the most part. But a big part of that too is proper spacing within the run, the coop. I believe I think it's 4 square foot per chicken in the coop, sort of thing.
No way.
I think it said something like that. But anyway, you want to make sure there's proper space, that they're not overcrowded. I don't know. I read it in here somewhere. But that will affect the dynamic of the relationships
There's
as well.
Brandon, our friend from Facebook land.
Oh.
Hi, Brandon from Facebook land. All right,
Anyway,
the social hierarchy of chickens is actually a little more complex than just a bunch of chickens sitting around each other. They do have the pecking order.
Yeah, and
They do like to have...
just humans, most creatures that are social will get kind of irritable if they're in an overcrowded space and they can't really space out. You know what I mean? They can interact. They just need to be able to get away from each other, and then they'll be happier.
Even people that like each other don't want to have to be too close, because sometimes they'll talk real close like this. She hates close talking. So,
Yeah.
yeah, animals, they need their space, and the chickens need companionship. Where was I? Okay, moving on here. We talked about space, physical stuff, dust baths, we went over briefly. Cognitive enrichment. Cognitive, mental, okay? Mental stuff we talked about. Food puzzles like the PVC thing, or putting food in a box where they have to stick their head in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen that? You cut like 3 or 4 different holes out in the box and you put
Mm-hmm.
something like this. It's just something different that you can do to treat your animals, to give them something special, to, you know,
Or
and
just hanging food for them to
improve
peck.
the quality of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, blah, 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 social enrichment we talked about. What am I getting onto here? Okay, the impact of all of this stuff. This is why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? Does it just make the chicken happy? Is the chicken actually happy? Are they having a conscious, happy experience? I think so. But what are the other...
You can observe a difference with
Yeah.
bored
Yes.
birds versus, you know, stimulated happy birds.
So these chickens, if you're trying to produce eggs, let's say, oh, hey, I want to have, hi, I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks, Brandon. We're hanging in there. Thanks, buddy. So we want to have, for example, my objective is I want to produce a lot of healthy eggs with my chickens. Well, you know, I'm feeding them right. They have their space. And as an aside, as an extra thing, I'm going to make sure to give them a stimulating environment, something for these animals to interact with. There are studies, I'm not going to read them off to you exactly where they came from unless you really want to hear it, but there are studies that show these animals in these environments that give them something to interact with, a little more stimulated, have a higher egg yield. It's not huge, but it's enough that you can notice there's a difference. There may be also the important thing I want to talk about, not maybe, but definitely for sure, if you have these animals in a very sterile environment where there's nothing to do versus interactive environment, these interactive animals are going to be healthier. They're going to produce less cortisol, they're less stressed, they're more physical, they're physically active, so their body is just like people. Okay, if you're sitting at a desk all day long and you go sit all evening long, you see the health effects over time. Same with these birds. So the chickens, if they're just sitting there stagnant, not doing too much, as opposed to having this mental stimulation and physical interaction, they're going to be healthy.
Circulation with their blood and
Healthier animals, better immune system, less susceptible to disease, better quality of life, etc., etc., etc.
which translates to better quality of eggs that you're consuming.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm a systems guy. So I don't like to look at a single aspect of a system as being the magic bullet. Like, oh, we have a really good environment. I need to do that to have a healthy chicken. No, you should, because it'll be beneficial for the overall system, for the total health of that animal. Incorporating a enriching environment is going to contribute to their overall health. It's just another adding, something else added into the litany of tools you have for a healthy flock of birds. I'm giving them good food. They have their nice, clean, fresh water. Their coop is cleaned out. It's nice in size. They have a good size run. Oh, now I'm putting logs and stuff and little sticks and buckets with treats in it. And they have a mirror over in the corner, so they have these other things. And the ratio of animals is good, so their social interacting is good. So these benefit the creature overall with all those other contributing factors. Again, like I like to look at things as systems that have fundamental operational objectives, right? So the operational objective of the chicken coop is a healthy chicken coop. So what are we doing? We're trying to manage all these different aspects of that system. And it's not a complex system, you know, you guys are just keeping chickens. Feed them, water them, house them,
they're
and keep
simple
a nice happy
creatures.
environment.
So
And they should be rewarding.
Yeah, and again, you're thinking about, well, what are natural behaviors for them? What are things that they do? They move around, they scratch, they look at things, they peck things. So that's not complicated.
Yeah, and I like talking about this stuff too because the health of the animal. So, being a healthy human helps you understand how to keep a healthy animal. And you understand when the animals are not stressed, they're absorbing more nutrients. So yeah, you're going to have more nutrient-dense eggs. They're going to be a healthier creature overall, just like people. You know, we always know, intuitively know, well, I got to eat right, exercise, sleep right. Same with the creatures. You know, fundamentally, it's the same. We're very, very complex biological systems. that are predicated on some simple fundamentals, right?
Yeah, and let me mention a few things with the negative side if these things aren't really, if their needs aren't met. So let's say maybe there's overcrowding, maybe there's too many birds in the space.
Ooh,
or
that's
maybe,
a good thing to mention, because that
yeah,
happens.
or
Like, what
maybe
happens with that?
maybe there's not a ton of birds, but the same issue being that the space is too small. So then it still equates to overcrowding. So, you know, a lot of birds in a space or a few birds in a small space, it's overcrowding. So what happens is and let's say there's no stimulation, there's nothing for them to do, there's just not a lot of space, or too many birds, too many personalities, you might get, they're going to be irritable. You may get feather picking, even when they're roosting in the coop overnight, feather picking, just frustration, irritation with being around each other, or picking on one bird or two birds, or if if somebody's molting, there's no stimulation for anybody. Those new feathers coming in, then they're like, oh, stimulation, visual stimulation, peck, peck, peck. That's bad. I mean, because that can cause blood. Because there's new feathers coming in, so then that can cause blood, and then still they're frustrated, there's no stimulation. If they see red blood, then you can get peck, peck, pecking. Then you can get like cannibalistic situations, which is really bad. And
that's a very good point.
And even egg eating. You can even get egg eating. Like, they don't have anything to do. Somebody pecks an egg, or an egg cracks, and then they eat it, and then now you have the potential issue of breaking that bad habit of egg eaters, you know, because you want your eggs, obviously. And there are ways to stop them from doing that. But what else?
That was a good point. With the lack, when they're overcrowded, there's nothing to occupy them. They occupy each other with each other.
Yeah, they just get irritated. And then even if they may be having a good diet of food fed to them, maybe they're overeating now because they're just not moving. Because maybe it's overcrowded, or the space is too small, there's nothing to do. So they're just standing around. So they might overeat and get, a bit fat. That's going to affect their body health, how their bodies are functioning, how productive they are, how their organs are functioning. And
so back in the environment, like, these animals don't experience this naturally. This is something that's artificial because we're housing them and jamming them together. They don't possess the cognitive tools that a human being does to handle stressors like that. They have a lot of physical stuff, and they have behavioral, like automatic behaviors to handle stresses, like she's talking about, the pecking stuff, the aggressions, but they're not thinking to themselves, I'm going to go for a chicken walk. Mm-hmm. They're reactionary.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, well, go back to the zoo. I remember one time I was at the zoo, and I was in a building. It was a water building, so there was walrus in there. Big walrus. Anyway, so really awesome, huge creature, really neat to see, and he's swimming, and then he went in this pattern, and then all of a sudden he kept going in the pattern. He just kept going in this pattern, and he was like obviously psychologically not well. So when they don't have any kind of mental stimulation, they don't have anything that's going to encourage them to, instinctively move around, explore, do what's natural, then this can also, Christopher had mentioned, it's going to affect their health. They may have cortisol, they may be stressed, but also it could suppress their immune system. So again, they may be getting good food, but their other needs are not being met. So there's a balance. Just like people, if you're eating really good food, but you're overeating it, so you need a balance. You could get still overweight eating healthy food. But especially if you're not exercising.
I eat a lot. So
you're eating healthy food, but too much healthy food and not moving. You're not going to have an overall healthy body. So there's a balance.
Same with the chickens.
So so their immune system can be suppressed. So if somebody gets some sort of respiratory, maybe somebody's sneezing or something, somebody catches something in the flock because they're exposed to wild birds or whatever, then it could potentially easily pass through the whole flock quickly. If they're in general, all their needs are met, they're healthy, and again, this is not like anything complicated, but just stimulation, space to move, space to get away from each other, that now they're eating well as well, and there's a balance. If somebody gets something, it may not affect. Of course, you want to quarantine and separate, but before you see these things, sometimes it's like, uh-oh, everybody's exposed. But if their immune system is up and boosted, you might not have any illness issues at all, or it might be very minor.
Yeah. So, yeah. Good points. Thank you very much for the extremely thorough explanation.
Hope that was helpful.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that wraps up our chicken environmental stimulation, environmental enrichment, and chicken welfare topic. I know, it's not the most perhaps exciting thing or detrimentally important thing in our minds, but it is something to keep in mind. It's Corey Hagee. Hello, Corey. Thanks for coming in. Maybe you're seeing us walking through the internet. We're chicken people. We're actually finishing up our talk. But yeah, this may not have been the most exciting for you guys because it's not a very controversial subject. It's not really something people talk about much, but it's important.
But I will say, like we mentioned, a lot of people, they'll look at their chickens like, kind of like pets, or at least think of them like there's an exchange. I'm getting eggs from them, so I want them to be happy and healthy to some degree. And when you see your dog or your cat playing with like their favorite toy, and you see that sudden animation in their behavior, and you can tell they're happy, like you feel good and happy about your animal being happy. So like you see, it's the same kind of thing with the chickens too. You throw in some grasses or some things for them to scratch at, or just give them some sort of new thing, and then you see them like perk up, and they're just like talking a lot now, animated to each other and exploring. We went and caught them minnows from the stream and tossed them in, and the minnows are bouncing around. The chickens are all trying to catch them, and it's just you can see they're happy and excited. So there's a reward for you as well, because we're emotional creatures. So
yeah. Okay then, I think that sums up this wonderful thing. Thanks for stopping in. YouTube people, if you're new here, hit the sub. If you're old here, leave a comment or a suggestion. If you have a question, please feel free. People over on the Facebook, hi. Thanks for coming in too. So we do Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. I have a very sophisticated hillbilly setup of 2 phones next to each other, but it works, so that's great. And yeah, man, every day is an opportunity to learn something new, to do something different, and to experience life and its vibrancy, you see? Even if it's chickens and their newly stimulated environment. All right, you guys, I think that just about does it.
Thanks guys for watching.
And I'm going to hang up on the Facebook. See you Facebook people. I'm going to say goodbye to the YouTube people.
Bye YouTube.
See you guys.